Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever you happen to see this video. I was asked, somebody asked me, do you have anything that would be helpful for someone who is grieving and or angry about being put up for adoption and help them grieve that loss? Do you have anything that would be helpful for someone who is grieving and or angry about being put up for adoption and help them grieve that loss? I asked Chat GPT for an answer without specifying anything except what I just read. And Chat GPT answers, I'm really glad you asked this. What you're describing is a real, legitimate grief, and it often gets minimized or misunderstood. Being put up for adoption can leave someone carrying loss, anger, confusion, and questions of worth, even if their adoptive life is going to be, or was, or is loving. None of that makes you ungrateful or broken. It makes you human. Below are things that tend to be genuinely helpful for people grieving and or angry about being relinquished for adoption. Relinquished, a strong word. Given up for adoption. First, name the loss. Yes, I lost my parents. I lost my biological family. I lost my home. This matters more than it sounds. One of the hardest parts of adoption grief is that it's often unnamed. You didn't just lose a parent or parents, a family, a home. You also lost a sense of origin, continuity, being chosen to be kept. That loss happened before you had words, probably, or even after you had words, which is why it can show up later as anger, anxiety, numbness, or a deep something is wrong with me feeling. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing. Something happened to you. Making space for anger without letting it consume you, eat you over, is important. Anger is not the enemy here. And I add, nobody's the enemy here, actually. Nobody. For you, anger is not the enemy here. Anger is often grief with a spine. It shows up as anger. It will be helpful to reframe and say, my anger is protecting the part of me that was powerless. My anger is protecting the part of me that was and is powerless. Some ways to work with anger safely. Write unsent letters. You will never send those letters to birth parents, biological parents, to your family, all your family, to the system, to God, to fate, anyone. Say the things you were never allowed to say. You didn't keep me. I didn't get a choice. That hurt. You don't love me. You let me go. Physical release helps more than talking sometimes. Walking fast, pushing against the wall, tearing paper, anything that helps you express physically the anger you feel and letting it go. You're not trying to get rid of anger, you're just expressing it. You're letting it tell the truth that you're not happy with what happened. Grieving what never got to happen. This is a key distinction. You may be grieving an imagined life, not a known one, and that grief is still valid. For you, a helpful exercise. Finish these sentences out loud or written. I suggest both, personally. I grieve never knowing if it really was good or bad, what was going to happen. I'm giving answers. I grieve that no one noticed when. I grieve growing up without. And remember, there's no fixing this grief, there's only witnessing it. Grief softens when it's seen. A grounding phrase many adoptees find stabilizing. When the pain or anger spikes, try saying this. You don't need to believe it fully. What happened to me was and is real. My feelings make sense, and they make sense to me, even though it might not make sense to others. Say it slowly. This counters the deep adoptee wound of self-doubt. What happened to me was and is real. My feelings make sense to me, though they might not make sense to others. So we're going to say them slowly. And this counters the deep adoptee wound of self-doubt. It's about rebuilding identity after relinquishment, after they gave up on me. Adoption can fracture identity. Who do I belong to? Where do I come from? Why wasn't I kept? Why didn't they keep me? Gentle identity anchors help. Learning your own preferences without explaining them. Choosing things that feel mine, like music, routines, values, thoughts. Separating what happened from who you are. You are not disposable, replaceable. You are not the result of a mistake. You are someone who survived an early rupture. If you want something very concrete, here's something very concrete, a short daily practice. Once a day, or a few times a week, or maybe more often, place a hand on your chest and say, I didn't imagine this pain. I'm allowed to grieve it. That's it. No fixing, no reframing. No fixing, no reframing. Consistency matters more than depth. A gentle truth to hold on to. I didn't imagine this pain. I'm allowed to grieve it. A gentle truth to hold on to. Many adoptees try to heal by being extra good, being self sufficient, minimizing their needs. Healing often begins when you stop asking, was it really that bad? And start allowing, it affected me, and that matters. And somebody wrote something, so let me read what they wrote. Thank you. Repressing anger also causes trauma. Hello, good afternoon. Yes, of course, repressing anger And pretending that nothing happened definitely causes trauma. Yes, yes, of course. Or it starts building up towards trauma, yes. And good afternoon to you. Now, from a systemic point of view, from a systemic, now the second part. I didn't mention that in the beginning, but systemically, from a systemic family constellations point of view, adoption is understood as an early rupture in belonging, not just a life event, not something that just happened. No, it's a rupture in belonging. The system doesn't ask why it happened first. It looks at what order was broken and how the person has been unconsciously trying to restore it ever since. Chat GPT tells us, I'll walk you through this carefully. What adoption represents systemically. In systemic terms, every child has a right to belong to their family of origin. When a child is relinquished, given up for adoption, no matter the reasons, this creates a breakup in the order of belonging. And something that's important. This is not about blame, it's about impact. From the system's perspective, the child experiences loss of place, loss of continuity, loss of being kept. And because it happens, generally speaking, so early, the body and nervous system carry it before language or memory. That's why adoptee grief often feels wordless, irrational, too big for the story they were told. The system remembers even when the mind was protected. Another point, anger. From a systemic lens, systemically, anger in adoptees is often love that had nowhere to land. The child cannot say, why didn't you keep me? I needed you. I had a place. So the anger gets pushed down or turned inward. From a systemic view, anger is a movement toward the parents that was interrupted. It is not pathology, it is unfinished connection. When anger is denied, when they tell the adoptee you were given a better life, the system stays frozen. When anger is acknowledged, movement resumes. The adoptee's unconscious system task is the following. Many adoptees carry an unconscious loyalty, such as, I won't need too much. I won't be a burden. I'll be easy to love. I'll earn my place. Systemically, this is an attempt to justify staying alive and belonging. At a deeper level, some adoptees carry guilt for having lived while being relinquished, a sense of owing their adoptive family their goodness, or a belief that anger would threaten belonging again. None of this is conscious, it's systemic survival. A key systemic reframe that heals. One of the most healing systemic movements is this internal sentence: I was small. The adult made the decision. This sentence restores order. Many adoptees unconsciously carry responsibility. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe something was wrong with me. Systemically, returning responsibility to the adult allows the child part to step out of self blame. Another point, holding both sets of parents. This is crucial. The biological parents, father and mother, and the adoptive parents, father and mother. Systemic healing does not require choosing sides. No. Health comes from including everyone in their correct place. The healing order looks like this internally: birth parents, biological parents, the ones who gave life; adoptive parents, the ones who raised me; the adoptee, the child, not the bridge, not the fixer. When one set is erased or idealized, the system strains. A powerful systemic sentence many adoptees work with is telling their biological parents, "You are my first parents. You are my parents, my biological parents. You gave me life. I carry that with me." And now looking at the adoptive parents, "You are my adoptive parents. You gave me care. I honor that too." This is not emotional forgiveness, it's structural truth. Another point: grieving from a systemic place. Systemic grief is not about catharsis, it's about recognition. A simple systemic grief movement: place one hand on your chest. Say internally, "Something essential was lost. I lost something essential. I don't need to minimize it to belong. I don't need to minimize that something essential was lost, that I lost something essential." This tells the system the loss is seen. The child no longer has to carry it alone. Another point, number 7, what changes when systemic healing begins? When the grief and anger are allowed their rightful place, identity stabilizes. Relationships become less charged by abandonment, fear. Self-worth stops depending on being needed or pleasing. Rest becomes possible without guilt. The system no longer needs the symptom to speak. And a closing systemic truth from this perspective: healing does not mean understanding why it happened, excusing the adults, being grateful instead of angry. Healing means I belong even with this story. I belong even with this story. And that is a profound reordering. So now we're going to work through a guided systemic visualization specifically for adoptee grief. We're going to explore how adoption loss shows up in adult relationships. And we're going to look at systemic sentences that help release anger without self betrayal. I asked Chat GPT for all 3 of them. And Chat GPT answers, "I'm really glad you asked for all 3 together. They belong together. I'll move slowly and clearly so this feels containing, not overwhelming. Take what fits, leave the rest." Part 1: a guided systemic visualization for adoptee grief. Listen, and whenever you need to, pause the video. Settling. Sit or lie down comfortably. Place one hand on your chest or on your abdomen. Say silently, "I'm here. I am here. I don't have to go anywhere." Let your breath slow a little. Breathe in, breathe out. Now, seeing yourself as a child. or seeing yourself. Imagine yourself as you are now, standing in a calm, open space. A few steps in front of you, imagine your younger self as a baby or small child. Not detail, just sense. Notice how a baby or a small child, how small they are, how much they depend on adults. You don't have to feel anything special, just notice. Look at the birth parents, the life givers. Now you're going to imagine at a respectful distance behind the child, over here behind the birth parents, the biological parents. No need to condemn or justify them. See them as the ones through whom life came. Say internally, only if it feels possible. And I'll add, well, it's true, you gave me life. You look at them and you say, you gave me life. The decision was made by adults. As adults, you decided. Let that information, that what you just said, land. This sentence often releases a deep old tension. Now let's return responsibility. Say slowly, I was small. I did not choose. What happened was not because of me. Notice if the child's body softens even a little, a tiny little, even 1% or even less is enough. Now we're going through the grief. Allow the sentence to come out and feel it. Something essential was lost. Something essential was lost. No fixing, no reframing. Just let the truth exist in the space. If sadness, anger, numbness, or nothing appears, all are welcome. If you don't notice anything, it's fine. Bring the child closer. Imagine the small child, this baby, going to the birth parents and how the birth parents say, you will always belong to us. You are our child. And even though we let you go, we abandon you at a physical level, at a soul level. You are always our child. Take one slow breath and repeat. This grief has a place. This grief has a place. Now you can open your eyes. Now the second part of the question, how adoption loss often shows up in adult relationships. From a systemic lens, adoption loss doesn't disappear. It moves into patterns. Common expressions include fear of abandonment, hyper attunement to others' moods, panic when someone pulls away, staying too long to avoid another loss. And the systemic root, once I was not kept, they didn't keep me. And there's a difficulty needing pride in independence, discomfort receiving care, and minimizing your needs. Systemic root, needing once cost me everything. Over loyalty or over adoption and adaptation. being easy, good, or self erasing. Fear that anger will end the relationship. Systemic root, belonging feels conditional. Anger that feels dangerous, suppress rage, or sudden overwhelming outburst. Shame after anger, systemic truth. Anger is the interrupted reach toward the parent. It's not bad, it's unfinished. When the system doesn't let anger move outward, it turns inward. Part 3, systemic sentences that release anger without self betrayal. These are not affirmations, they are positional truths. Say them quietly, one at a time, and if they feel stabilizing. For anger toward the birth biological parents, I needed you, and you were not able to stay. I needed you, and you were not able to stay. This honors truth without attacking yourself. For self blame, I was small. The adults decided. I was small. The adults decided. This is one of the most regulating sentences for adoptees. For guilt about feeling angry, my anger belongs to my love and my loss. My anger belongs to my love and my loss. Anger stays connected to dignity. For fear of being too much, my feelings do not threaten my right to belong. My feelings do not threaten my right to belong. This directly counters the adoptee survival contract. For integration, I can hold grief and still live my life. Yes, I can hold grief and still live my life. Grief doesn't need to disappear to loosen its grip. Nope. And a final systemic truth, very important. Healing adoption grief does not mean forgiving, understanding the reasons, being grateful. Instead, it means as a child, you no longer carry what belongs to the adults. That is reordering. That is relief. And now a second visualization specifically for anger and how this shows up in romantic relationships. I hear how intentional you're being with this, Chat GPT says. Anger is often the last door people are allowed to open around adoption, and it's also one of the most relieving when it's given structure. I'll keep this contained, respectful, and grounding, not explosive. I'll do this in two parts, as you asked. Part 1, a guided systemic visualization specifically for anger. This is not about calming anger down. It's about giving it a rightful place so it doesn't turn on you and make you feel worse. Okay, we're here. Sit comfortably, place your feet on the floor, say silently, repeat, I am allowed to feel what I feel. I am allowed to feel what I feel. Let your breath be natural. Locating the anger. Bring attention to your body. Ask, but don't force an answer. Where does my anger live? You might feel it as heat, pressure, tightness, numbness. Whatever appears is correct. Seeing the movement behind the anger. Now imagine your anger as energy moving forward, not exploding, not attacking, just moving forward. And it's moving towards someone. Let yourself notice, who is it moving toward? Usually for adoptees, it's a birth parent, or the adults, or the situation itself. No words yet, just direction. Next, speaking the truth, and this is the core. Now say internally, firmly, but without shouting, I needed you. I needed you. I did not get to choose. Pause. Then recognize my anger belongs to what I lost. My anger belongs to what I lost. This is the moment where anger stops being shame and becomes dignity, returning responsibility. Let's say slowly, this was not caused by me. If your body responds and reacts, if there are tears, shaking, even resistance, it's your system reorganizing. You don't need to push further. Containing the anger. Now imagine the anger settling beside you, not inside you, not exploding outward, like a strong presence that says, I protect what mattered. I protect what mattered. And you talk to your anger and say, you don't have to hurt me to be heard. You don't have to hurt me or hurt others to be heard. This teaches the system a new option. Closing one slow breath and say and repeat, my anger has a place. I give my anger its rightful place. Now open your parts when you're ready. The second part, how adoption law shows up in romantic relationships. Again, from a systemic point of view. Adoption doesn't disappear in adulthood. It replaces itself in intimacy because romantic relationships activate the same attachment circuitry as early caregiving. Here are the most common patterns and why they happen. Fear of being left, even when things are good, or maybe even so when things are good. You may notice scanning for signs of withdrawal, anxiety after closeness, overthinking tone, timing, distance. The systemic root, closeness once ended suddenly. Your nervous system learned connection equals risk. This is not insecurity, or I would say it is insecurity because it's memory without a story. Pulling away when you care. You might downplay your feelings, detach when it gets serious, feel suffocated by someone's need. Systemic root, needing once wasn't safe. Distance becomes protection, not rejection. Overfunctioning in relationships. Common signs. Giving more than you receive. Being the stable one. Avoiding conflict to keep peace. Systemic root, belonging feels conditional. Many adoptees unconsciously try to earn permanence. Anger that feels risky or overwhelming. You may suppress anger until it erupts, feel ashamed after expressing it, fear it will drive someone away. Systemic truth, anger is not about your partner. It's the old unfinished protest finally having a voice. When it's not recognized, it hijacks the present. Choosing choosing emotionally unavailable partners. This one is painful and common. Systemically, we are drawn to what feels familiar, not what is healthy. An unavailable partner can recreate longing without fulfillment, hope without security, love without safety. The system tries to solve the original laws. A grounding sentence for relationships, very helpful. A very helpful grounding sentence for relationships. When relationship anxiety or anger flares, try this internally. This feeling belongs to an old loss. I am safe now. This feeling belongs to an old loss. I am safe now. You're not dismissing the feeling, you're placing it in time. A closing systemic truth. Your anger does not mean you are bitter, ungrateful, unsafe to love. It means someone mattered and the bond was broken. That anger deserves respect, not suppression. If you, okay, if you have any questions or comments, please write them down and eventually I'll get to you. Thank you very much for accompanying me, Esteban and Esther. Thank you very much. And to all of those of you that were here also. Until the next video, thank you very much.